But getting back to our topic, we've been talking about the tragedy at Michigan State University. We've just had too many mass shootings to take in and to process. And like Kari said a little earlier, they keep happening over and over and over again. And when we first started hearing about them, we thought these were one-time things, and they are absolutely not. It's enough with the sentiments of thoughts and prayers. It's not enough. They keep happening. These are just some of the feelings that are, people are saying on social media. You hear it in your conversation with your neighbors, like enough is enough. But before we even get to finding solutions on how to prevent these kind of tragedies from happening again, how do we process all of this? So I want to welcome back our friend Ronnie Hormel, who's a therapist from Birmingham Maple Clinic, who's here with us to sort it all out. Ronnie, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great, even though this is a topic I wish we weren't needing to talk about and discuss.
Yeah, most definitely, because we were supposed to be together on Tuesday, and we were going to talk about Valentine's Day. We had such a fun show planned for you guys.
Yeah.
And then this kind of thing comes in. But Ronnie, it has all been overwhelming. How do we deal with the initial shock? Like, I felt like someone smacked me across the face when I got the news.
Oh, yeah, no, same with me. It was completely devastating. Not to share too much, but actually, sadly, one of our interns who worked over the summer at Birmingham Maple Clinic, her roommate, Alexandra, was one of the poor women who were murdered. So this is totally personal. My whole office, myself included, is just reeling. It's horrible that, a woman that we know who worked at our office, who was lovely, is going through probably one of the worst times she ever has had in her life by losing her roommate and best friend. So I think one of the most important things I tell people when you are going through grief and confusion and misunderstanding, because it's just, it's just to normalize this roller coaster you're going to be on. There's going to be something going on where maybe you see pictures or something that you think would be typically triggering to you, right? And you're thinking, I'm kind of okay right now. Like, I'm sad, but I'm not breaking down. I think I'm doing well. And all of a sudden, maybe you pass, I'm making this up right now, but you pass like a Chipotle or Starbucks, right? And it reminds you that you guys would, go there. That would be something you would meet up and do or study. And all of a sudden, here come the tears. And it can be, and that's how grief works, right? And, you're going to go through all these different cycles of bargaining and anger and denial and peace, and you're going to be sobbing, and then the next minute feel like, okay, I'm not good, but I'm okay. And just normalize all that. Just normalize, like, hey, right now I'm good, or right now I'm not. And this is just temporary. And this is also my brain working normally. Nothing about the situation is good. So the fact that we're on a roller coaster and feeling all of this grief and confusion and anger is normal.
Okay. Now, one of the other things that I feel like, and I appreciate you saying that it's a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. There are going to be triggers, there are going to be ups and downs, and that's helpful when you're trying to wonder why 1 second I'm kind of okay and the next second I'm not, right? But I think with this particular tragedy, what I'm getting from a lot of people too is they are angry. They are angry, and I am one of those people. And when these things happen, often we think thoughts and prayers, but that feels trite at this point. How do we start to express our emotions in a meaningful way, right? Doesn't it feel trite? I'm not saying thoughts and prayers. It can't come out of my mouth. I can't say
No. Well, but hear me out too, Tati, because I completely agree with you. Is thoughts and prayers, if you think about that, what is that? Those are verbs. That's an action. So I want an action to take place. I think we need to think about it completely different. I think even kind of myself, I'll just, take ownership of part of this, has missed the ball. I think a lot of times we have been trying to convince and change the minds of politicians and also people, that colleagues, friends, family, neighbors who are, want more. They think the answer is more guns or mental health, which is a part of it. I'm not denying that, but we learned something with Dr. Martin Luther King that we are not using, which is we have power. People were not saying that they were done thinking, okay, am I going to get benefits for my family? Am I not? And, companies are like, oh, we'll kind of figure it out. All of a sudden, one day they were like, yeah, no, we're boycotting. We're not doing this anymore. We have power collectively. So I think we need to switch the narrative and think hope. Where is the hope? That's what I need. And that's also kind of my training, right? And I need hope right now. And so I can't even imagine what these people are going through, is think all of these younger people that older generations, really even my generation, has failed. Really. I mean, we need to use the right language. These older generations have completely failed the younger generations at keeping them safe. These are all voters coming up. So my encouragement to people to give hope is say, we're having a whole new generation that's not going to put up with this gaslighting discussion about more guns or, that it's not guns the problem. Listen, I'm all about responsible gun ownership with appropriate measures that need to be taken. Most Americans agree. So this is not as divided as certain people want us to be. And we need to, move back to moments like the civil rights where people are like, I'm not living like this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. And we have history to show that it works. So we need to explore who we're voting for, demand transparency. And if it doesn't come through, we're not voting for them again. This should be like another Vietnam where people are, protesting. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not spending this. I'm not spending that. I'm not waiting anymore. That's how the civil rights happened. People are like, I can't wait anymore. My children can't wait anymore. I can't wait anymore. And I thought about this the other day is, mental health is politics and politics is mental health. And so in the civil rights, of course, people had anxiety and depression because they were so sick of not getting, basic human rights or their kids getting access to education. They were like, their mental health is, of course, their mental health wasn't good. So, we need to stop saying, I don't want to get political. No, I do. And I don't want to be partisan. That's different, but I want to be political. Politics is mental health and mental health is politics. And right now, I can't even imagine what it's like to be on stage and to try to be hopeful and focus. So that's part of it. All of a sudden now, there's all this. I don't think anybody in the mental health or medical field would disagree. When we have anxiety and depression, our focus is quite down. In fact, it looks very ADHD, even though if you would take a psychological assessment, it's not ADHD, it's anxiety and depression, just mimicking those symptoms. So, people are supposed to be at their best right now, attempting to be, and that's
right. No, I love how you said that we have more power than we think we do, or are we exercising it, right? So that might be part of the thing. Yes,
right.
All of us adults failed this generation, but I think part of it too is that you feel helpless. It feels like,
oh, right.
What do I do? It's
right.
hard to kind of break it down and remember that there is something I can do, or maybe we don't have the kind of leadership to remind us of what our power is. What do you say about that? The helplessness part.
That's an interesting question you asked. My initial idea was reminding ourselves and looking at things in the future, in the past, because that's like a good cognitive behavioral piece we can use. Like I said, Dr. Martin Luther King. So we have direct examples that people saying enough is enough, and whatever adjustments I need to make in my life can actually enact change. Now, how we do that in the future is an interesting question that you just got me thinking. We may need to have, Governor Whitmer talk about who is holding things back. We may need to ask Congress people and representatives who is holding stuff back. We need their names. We need to say their names. We need to talk with them. And if they're not transparent, we need to really advocate to get them voted out.
That's right.
So it's probably going to come from people that are really able to have a conversation like, myself and yourself can have, where we can have real dialogue and we're not skirting an issue, and saying stuff like, well, there's a lot of stuff going on today. I know that. You know that. I'm talking about this right now.
We're good, right? Now
We're good.
that leads me to my next question. My next point is that my biggest fear, Ronnie, is that we get desensitized to these kind of occurrences, right? How do we not lose the gravity of all of this? Because, Kari and I were talking about this, and he made a really good point. He brought up Columbine and how we thought, oh my gosh, this was a one-time thing. This would never happen again. And these things are happening again and again. And he brought my attention to that there was a shooting at a mall in El Paso, was it, Kari?
Yeah.
In El Paso. Like, are we becoming desensitized to this? And how do we make sure that that doesn't happen? Because if we're desensitized, then I feel like we'll be less likely to take action and try to make a course correction.
So I think there are certain ways to not become desensitized to anything. And for everybody that's different, and I know I'm being vague exactly like I just said not to be, but it could be writing notes about yourself, things that you want to accomplish, journaling, putting Post-its around, and really, maybe you put an MSU flag in front of your house, even if you are not a Spartan, right? But now you are, as far as the support. And make plans to do, when I say plans, maybe, you are sending an email to Dana Nessel's office or Gretchen Whitmer's office or something even at a federal level, finding out, hey, listen, I don't know where to start, but who is really supporting these laws that really the majority of the Americas don't agree with, right? Like they're into appropriate background checks or an increase of cost or time, so if it costs $1,500 in 6 months with training to get a gun, people might be like, I don't know, that's a lot of money, and then I have to take these classes and whatever. Most Americans are for this, or something along the lines of that. So who's stopping it? And make a plan and then check back with your plan. Did I get the answers I needed? If I did, what's the next step? And if I didn't, who's another person I need to reach out to? We're going to stay on track if we make a plan, just like for everything. Exercise, cooking at home versus takeout. If we have a game plan, we're successful. If we don't, it's like we're DoorDash and Jets Pizza.
Exactly. And the worst kind.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. And this is something that we also touched on at the top of the show, which is just, again, a lot to take in. We had a student that was at Oxford when that shooting happened, who is now a freshman at Michigan State. We had another student that spoke out who was at Sandy Hook and was also at Michigan State. What would you even say to these kind of kids? How could we even help them? And then when you see this, how do we help kids who are just afraid to go back to school, whether it's the 6th grade or, sophomore year at college?
Yeah, I think sadly for these poor souls, we need to do the best we can to normalize that they are feeling completely terrified. And I'm praying and I'm hoping that schools make accommodations that are appropriate for these kids, right? Which may be distance learning. I'm not sure what accommodations could look like, but really flexible, not like, well, this is what we have to offer. Like, well, I'm sure you can figure something additional out. Because I'm sure I even can picture myself doing therapy with these kids, validating, and also addressing the fact that the odds of something like this happening to them again are very small, like a house fire. But the thing is it feels like it's coming closer, right?
Yes.
Like now that it feels like, oh, well, it's coming closer. And I don't just mean Michigan State. In our state, I mean what you just said. Now there's somebody from Sandy Hook.
That's
and
right.
Now there's somebody from Oxford, and they've experienced this again. It just feels like it's closing in. And so I think that can also be part of our motivation. We can say to them, listen, you need to vote. You need to get in apologies. You need to find out who is supporting something that is stopping appropriate reform and who wants it and how to support them. And because that also gives them action and autonomy in this time of, just complete terror, right? Because we feel stuck. So if me and you are feeling stuck and scared, I can't even imagine what they're feeling. So, and that's what helps with, being stuck is action. Okay,
I
I
agree.
need to do something. I need to do something.
Something. So let me ask you this though, because this is something else we touched on. Is Kari made a good point of this about like living in Detroit. If we knew how to avoid certain areas, you knew how to kind of navigate around things that could be problematic. But
Yeah,
a part of it feeling like it's closer is it's happening in safe spaces that we never thought we would see things like this. The
right.
grocery store,
Yeah.
church, school. Well, school now, it's getting way too commonplace. One time is too many. So how do we get comfortable with going back to day-to-day life? Like, I don't want to side-eye people when I'm out in the street. You know what I mean? I don't want to look like, does that person look suspicious? And what does that even mean, right? And it's coming from a place of just feeling like you don't know what's going to happen. Because we have, as one of our headlines, where we have the sentencing of the 19-year-old that shot up the grocery store in Buffalo, New York. That kind of thing was unheard of. And lightning did strike twice with these kids. So how do we not get into our heads to the point where we're not comfortable conducting day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's funny that you guys were talking about that because I actually was talking about that yesterday. Kari, I'm from this area and my dad went to Wayne State for undergrad and graduate school. So I was going down to Detroit with my family as a kid when Cass Corridor was the Cass Corridor. My parents were just taking me. They were like, we live in a safe world. Everything's fine. When it was pretty rough. But the interesting part is exactly what you guys said. It was like, look people in the eye, say hi to people, don't act suspicious, and treat everybody, like they're a human, and just take adequate precautions. And nothing happened, and we were able to enjoy the city in the 80s and 90s. And now, correct, this feels like everything is on the table, and I think that we really need to push ourselves to continue to do stuff, and sadly, unfortunately, be prepared as far as like, okay, if something were to happen, what would I do? Which I don't even want to have that conversation with people, because that, myself, you, the audience, because that is kind of indicating that, okay, so we are going to go out into life feeling unsafe and uncertain. And unfortunately, right now in the United States, I feel like that is a reality. So therefore, to mitigate avoidance, you can talk yourself through things. Okay, so if I needed to go grocery shopping, where would I run? What would I do if something made me feel unsafe? And telling yourself, I'm going to still do it. I'm going to still, and there is a part of defiance in that too, that I'm not going to let gunmen, I'm not going to let politicians who refuse to make changes win. I am still going to do this, but be prepared. And, think of it as, this does sound trite, but a little bit of, money in a savings account. It's not like you're like, listen, I'm, just going to do my best and trust myself. And, it's like, okay, well, it is smart to have a little money in the savings account, even if it's not coming out. It's just good knowing it's there just in case.
Yes, I like that. You know what? That is a great analogy. Even Kari's giving you the finger wag.
Yeah, I like
he's
that.
on it. But that
Good.
is such a good way to put it. That doesn't feel heavy, right? Like it's money in a savings account. It's your emergency fund. If you need it, you can draw from it. But if you don't, that's great.
Yes.
So we were ready.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
That sounds great.
Right. And that even might be, I'm going to put my cell phone on silent and I'm going to keep it with me. So, God forbid I'm hiding somewhere real quick. My phone's not going to be ringing, giving me away, but I know that I can text or call somebody if I'm just even something like that.
Yes. It might seem small, but it's not small. That's the kind of thing that will give you. See, this is the thing. That's why I can't wait to talk to you. Is because it's all about the way we frame what we have to do.
Yeah.
Right. If it looks like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, then it's going to be like, look, I don't even know how to get around this thing. Right. But if someone can give you steps like, okay, you get someone to guide you, you make sure you have all of this that you need, then it looks like, it doesn't look easy, but it looks like something that's attainable.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. Kari, did you have a question?
Sorry, I got to turn my mic on. I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but I have found that, again, when you are, dealing with some folks that are from the city. Unfortunately, in some way, shape, or form, they're already trained for this.
Yeah.
So, you go from a place like, inner city Detroit to Michigan State, and unfortunately, you already have this type of thing in your mind of what you need to do. Or if you, are from the inner city, you might have already gone through the process of, telling your kids or being the kid being told what you need to do if you get pulled over. So it's like a whole lot going on for that person. And I think about that person that has been doing this to some degree all of their life. And now there are children that are, were 10 and are now 20 at Michigan State that have been doing this all of their life. So how do you deal with, or what do you say to the kid that has had to have this practice throughout their life and then have it placed in their hands where they had to hide and fight, or like how do you go and talk to that person, tell them that we're going to get to the other side of this somehow?
So
I'm sorry, I know that was a lot. I apologize.
No, don't ever apologize for asking questions. Actually, you touched on a really good point that I have interestingly been discussing a lot with people I see, especially minorities, people of color, Muslim women or men that I see that maybe wear more traditional type clothing that would, I guess people would be able to identify them. And when different racially charged things have happened, maybe in the past several years, and people are outraged, sometimes myself included, like I'm, right here, as a, cis white man, they'll say, yeah, this has been happening. This has been happening for like ever. In fact, it happened to me or my brother or my mother or my father. And there is a little bit of, or a lot bit, I shouldn't say, I don't know why I'm dismissing this. There's a lot bit of like, so when are other people, or it's interesting that now people are considering this a major problem when I've been living this, or my community, my family, whatever, have been living with this for quite a while, and it's actually quite exhausting and debilitating and humbling, right? And I think that one of the things that you can do is, first of all, validate. Just validate that this is unfair, that it's unfair that they've lived this way. This is unfair that this has been just a part of parental discussion with their children, possibly school discussion, cultural norms, right? Like, hey, this isn't safe, or you could be called racist things about your religion or your dress or your skin color at a gas station. That's not okay. And again, I go back and forth because I feel like, is this their responsibility to be the rest of the world or the community's teacher? I go back and forth with that, but I do say this is an opportunity for you to say, you know what? I'm with you on this, and for whatever factors that were probably out of your control versus how you look, how you worship, where you live, you didn't experience, and I did, and I can share with you my experiences that now you're suddenly flooded with and are like, I don't even know what to do with all this that's just coming at me like a tsunami. So that can be a real healing thing, because finally these people are kind of heard and seen, right? So people that lived maybe unfortunately in a neighborhood or for whatever reason that frequently didn't feel safe. And now people are saying, oh my God, I feel unsafe at MSU. And they're like, yeah, I've kind of felt that way for most of my life. Right. And so it can be a healing way of saying, we can come together, and no one deserves to feel this way. I didn't deserve to grow up like this. We need to enact change. You don't deserve, and I don't deserve to feel this way now. So it can be a moment of education from the other person, because I feel like people are open right now. So that's a benefit. Like when someone that might be like, oh, I don't know, I'm, friends with this person, or they don't feel safe. Now that it's like this equalizer. I feel like people's ears are more open to hear the dialogue of people who have been raised this way or had to live this way for years. And that to me, like, maybe it's a little Pollyanna, but that to me is like a beautiful moment, because I feel like it's more like, at this point we need as many in the pack as possible. So that's a unifying opportunity.
That's such a good point. I would have never looked at it that way. That makes so much sense. It's something good, or some kind of understanding.
Right. It's a unifier.
This, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is great. Ronnie, thank you so much for being with us this morning, because I know this is going to be an ongoing thing that we're trying to figure this out, trying to unpack it. I'm still very much shook up, very much shook up still. So.
Yeah, same. Yeah. We're all processing. It's going to take a minute. I don't know if we're ever going to feel normal again, but we're going to use this as motivation.
Yes, I love that. I love your message. And I thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you both. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. You too. Yeah. Now you guys can all see why I reach out to Ronnie at times like this. There's the way that he frames things for us that show that there is, you know, a silver lining, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, right? That's why they're trained to do this, right, Kari? Like, I would have never made that connection.
Every answer was the right one. So you know, when you have someone like that, like, at your disposal that you can talk to, you please do. You know what I mean? If you can, seek out Ronnie, see if you can talk to him. If not, talk to somebody that is close to you, another or any other therapist in your area, because we all need help through this.
Listen, you got to find someone who can help you talk it through just like that.